everyone, and thank you so much for taking out your time on weekend. I know uh, we work so hard entire week, and that's the weekend is the only time we really sit back and do our own lovely things that we want to do and spend time with our loved ones. But thank you so much for taking out your 1.5 hour spending time on this amazing bootcamp series which we are starting on. So welcome to Slack Admin 201 certification bootcamp. So this bootcamp will be having in all 5 sessions. Today is the beginning, and very first session will be uh, that we will be covering now, and Piyusha will be going through what exactly the Slack session talks about. Session one. So Slack session one is about the Slack Foundation, which will be covering creating, configuring, and managing your workspaces. So if you are very new to Slack, so this is exactly the session which you're looking for. And the Slack bootcamp is proud collaborating with the Pride Force. So if someone really don't know about the Pride Force, so Pride Force is an initiative which really works on empowering and delivering sessions across various Salesforce stack, apart from which we also deliver the personality development trainings to LGBTQ community plus allies. Since this bootcamp is in association with the Pride Force, so one thing which I really to want to take this platform to express the and on behalf of entire Slack community, the solidarity for the LGBTQ community on the attack of the Berlin incidents. So that's the very reason the initiative like Pride Force really speaks a lot, wherein we are speaking about human rights, trans right, and of course about the equality within the community in whichever committee you are. So uh, so 1 minute of, I would say, 30 seconds of silence in solidarity with all the affected community members in Berlin. Okay, so welcome again. So my name is Mir Roshan Ali. I'm marketing champion, batch of 25, and I also lead marketing squad, which is initiative which works on the hands-on experiences across different cities in India on MCN, which is Marketing Cloud Next, and I'm also the founder of Pride Force along with Shivam Yadav, which focuses on the learning initiatives or LGBTQI plus community, not restricted to, but yeah, we have allies as well. So none other than Piyusha, we have a very well-known personality within say Slack ecosystem. She's Salesforce MVP, Golden Hoodie recipient, marketing champion, and of course, a very big Slack, and to who is like going up and above in terms of broader Salesforce ecosystem. So welcome Piyusha to the session.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, so once we cover all our 5 sessions, so we have few certification vouchers which we want to give away. So I would request everyone to stay throughout 5 sessions. So once those sessions are completed, we will be going through some Q&A sessions, and that's when we will be that's your chance to claim your certification vouchers. And of course, feel free to share your learnings about the bootcamp and what you're looking for. And also, do not miss to uh, mention and tag hashtag Witherable Community. So over to you, Piyusha.
Thank you so much. I can see a lot of folks from the 30 days of challenge, Slack challenge has joined us. So I know you all have actually learned a lot of the things that we'll be talking about today. But for the folks who are new to Slack, Slack is a really wonderful tool, and I will actually start the presentation or actually the conversation by sharing my screen first. So Slack is a really amazing tool which hands-on, like one of the best tools for collaboration. What I want you all to do after the session is to go to slack.com and actually go through each of these features for you to be able to understand what Slack is, how it works, because whatever I will share will only have like limited impact unless you experience it yourself. So a good way, if you're very new to Slack, to learn more about what Slack can do is to go through all the different features of Slack and understand what exactly Slack can do for you. Slack is a platform which not only helps you communicate and collaborate with your team members, where you can actually, create channels, have conversations, share files, maybe create canvases, workflow automations, lists, and whatnot. Beyond that, Slack nowadays act as your single source of truth, because whatever apps you have connected with Slack, you can actually pull in data from those apps inside of Slack using Slackbot. So as Slack is growing, Slack has shifted from a collaboration tool to more like your work OS, where your team is working 24/7. You can bring in different agents, maybe your Cloud agent or your, Jira agent or your agent Forest agent. You can work with all of these tools in one platform that is Slack. For a lot of the times, I also get a question around Slack versus Teams. Which one should I opt for? So if you notice on the features sections, there's also a part which says Slack versus Teams. You can actually click on this and get more details around why your team should explore Slack or they shouldn't, totally depending on your choice. I am a pro Slack person, so I would say you should actually check this out. But in general, like, this is a good point for you to get started. We're not going to go too much into the details for each of these features because you're going to learn about these in the upcoming sessions. For today's session, we're going to actually focus on what you need for your Slack admin certification. So this is one of the links which I will be sharing in the chat section. And you can actually bookmark it for yourself if you're planning to appear for the Slack admin exam. This exam guide will actually have all the details around what you need to pass actually for the cert exam. I am also an SME. So I have actually created the examinations and which you need to actually do the actual implementations, but also pass the certification exam at the same time. Each of these things which are mentioned here, I can tell you that you're going to actually get questions around these for sure. So if you are preparing for certification, this is like a very good starting point. Make sure whatever is mentioned in each of these lines, because this is something which we wrote after going through a whole JDA. So you should actually make sure that all of these are covered and you're good to go for the exam. For the exam, actually, if you have, I'm assuming most of the folks have appeared for one or more of the Salesforce certification exam. So the pattern for this will remain almost the same. You'll have 60 multiple choice questions. You'll have 105 minutes. And 65% is the passing score, which we decided on based on how many people can answer the questions correctly. And again, the pricing is all the same. It has all the latest content. So you should be good with that if you're covering all the details around Slack bot, Slack AI, Agentforce, and related to that. Now, in terms of exam, it is divided actually into 6 different sections, starting with fundamentals, which we're going to cover today. Then you have your lifecycle management, workspace and org management, app and API administration, governance, security, and enabling Slack success. This is one of the most smallest portion of the exam, so you can actually focus on this towards the end. If you are planning to pass the exam, I will say getting the top ones right is like super, super important. Not that you can actually miss out on this, because if you are implementing a Slack Enterprise Plus for any org or your customer, if you are not focusing on adoption from the day zero, you will actually fail the implementation. So this is a really critical part for implementation. However, for exam purposes, it only has like 10% of weightage attached to it. So you should focus on this, but your primary focus should be understanding on what Slack is, how it works, and so on and so forth, especially for folks who are very, very new to Slack. So today we are actually going to cover how or which feature actually works best for any of the given requirements which you will receive in your question, identifying current level of access based on certain scenario, identifying common responsibilities for Slack admin, owner, and owners, and then given a scenario to define when to use each plan. So these are the things which we're going to cover today. Basis that, I will actually share one more link, which is super critical. And the link is this. So to be able to cover this first part of the exam, I know the Trailhead trail is still being developed for the admin exam. There are certain changes which needs to be made. But before that, you can actually go through this link, and it has all the things you need to know to be able to write your exam. All of these are help articles, but these are quite like summed up. So if you go through all of these, you should be good for the exam. One of the things which I want to highlight, and this is like something which will help you with all the Salesforce exams, is that Salesforce and Slack exams are designed based on help articles, not necessarily on the trails which you're going through. So make sure, even if you're going through the trails, you are reading the help articles mentioned at the bottom in the resources. If not, my best way to prepare for any certification exam is to go through all the help articles related to that topic. I know in terms of Salesforce, it gets too tricky because for example, if you're preparing for Sales Cloud consultant certification, you might actually have to go through hundreds, if not thousands of articles. So that gets a bit tricky. But for Slack, I feel like this is a good way for you all to get started and to understand like how everything works in here. Now, to get us started with the first point, as I mentioned, today we're going to cover these points, and then we will be focusing. Let's start with which plan does what. That's the first thing we want. So to understand how different plans work on Slack, there are 4 major plans: Free, Pro, Business Plus, and Enterprise Plus, actually. I'm sorry, I'm actually fixing this right now. It used to be Enterprise Grid. Now, after the recent changes, it has been changed to Enterprise Plus. Now, Enterprise Grid doesn't work anymore because everything has been transitioned over to Enterprise Plus. Now, Free plan obviously has limited features. Pro has some features, and then Business Plus and Enterprise Plus. So I'm actually going to take you all through different plans so you can actually get more details around Slack plans and pricing from this link, which I'm going to share. This will actually help you understand which feature is covered under which plan, so you can actually expand these sessions and understand this. However, and also there's a Slack article to understand this as well. I will share this article as well. However, what I'm going to show you is a bit interesting. So when you buy an Enterprise Grid yourself, you have the option to actually see what different plans looks like within your org. And it has a lot more details than these sections. So that's why we are actually going to look into it today. So if you look at Free, it includes 90 days of message history, up to 10 app integration, 1:1 meeting, and 1:1 external messages. However, there are limitations for the free plan. After the initial 1 year period, your data will be deleted. So if you're on a free plan for more than a year, you can only access data for 90 days. But if you do decide to upgrade your plan, you need to do that within the initial year, because after the first year, it actually gets deleted on a rolling basis. So your data will be deleted if you don't upgrade it on time after the first year. Now, you can actually search, you can record audio and video clips, but that's pretty much it. And also you can connect it with Salesforce and use Salesforce channels in it. You can actually integrate it with 10 different apps. I will say it used to be 10. In some cases, I'm seeing that this has changed to 3 now. I hope it stays 10 for the free plans, but if not, like, this is something which you need to keep an eye on. Then the data encryption is like the standard functionality. You can also add MFA, session duration, native device management. And as I mentioned, the data retention policy is up to 1 year only. So your data beyond 1 year will be auto-deleted on the free plans. Now for workspaces, you only get one workspace, and it is limited to general channel only. This is the plan which you need to bother the least about. The most you need to decide for the exam point of view is between Business Plus or Enterprise Plus. You do need to have some idea about Pro, because there will be like at least a couple of questions. It totally depends on which question you are getting, because the questions are circulated, so nobody knows for sure what you are actually going to see in the exam. But yeah, there will be some questions around Pro as well, but most questions will focus on Business Plus and Enterprise Plus. So you need to actually make sure the major differences between these two plans. As we scroll down, we can actually see like most things are available in Pro as well, at least for productivity and collaboration. So you can create templates, you can create lists, canvas, huddles, all of those things. However, in terms of AI, there are only few features which are added in the Pro plan. Most of the features are available in Business Plus and Enterprise Plus. In terms of CRM capability, you can actually create Salesforce channels on any plan, including the free one. However, to use Slackbot for preparing for your meetings, for email support, for tracking leads and deals, you need to actually upgrade to Business Plus. Enterprise Plus does include that. I'm actually surprised to see that this has a upon request mentioned here, because all of these features are available in this one as well. Now, in terms of automations and tools, there is no limit for integrations. You can actually integrate as many apps with your Slack or Workspace as much you want. There are about 2,900 out-of-the-box apps or connections available in the Slack marketplace for you to get started. And then you can also build some custom ones if the out-of-the-box doesn't satisfy your requirements. You can also deploy your own apps. You can build your own apps. You can create custom workflow steps. You can use Workflow Builder, which you can't for automations here in the free plan. Other than free plan, like, it's available in all the plans. The only caveat is the conditional branching in Workflow Builder is not available in the Pro plan. It's only available in Business Plus and Enterprise Plus. So if you want to use conditional branching, which is a relatively new feature of Slack, you probably need to actually upgrade to Business Plus or Enterprise Plus. Now, data encryption. Well, with the Pro plan, with free, you don't get any SSO, but with Pro, you do get OAuth with Google. And with Business Plus, you can actually get SAML-based SSO. It could be Okta or anything your organization is using. You do have features to other access logs and things like that as well. if you notice with the Enterprise Plus, you can actually use EKM, but that's an additional feature which you need to pay for. And then EMM is also something which you will get questions around these two topics in your exam, so make sure you actually read more about them. I think you will hear more about these two in the upcoming sessions. If you don't, I recommend you going through these two features, because a lot of time I see people skip out on this because they just don't understand the names and they feel like they're too tricky to understand and they just skip over them. So make sure you don't do that. Then we have, in terms of compliance, we can set up data retention policies based on our organization's preferences for all the paid plans. For Business Plus and Enterprise Plus, you can also decide where your data resides, because some countries have stricter regulations in terms of like keeping their data within their country. For example, UAE doesn't allow you to actually have your data outside of the country. So you probably need to have Business Plus or Enterprise Plus plan in those areas. Now, data export for all messages from a single user. This is a feature which was only available on Enterprise Plus. However, on Business Plus and Enterprise Plus, you can export data for all users, including public, private channels, and DMs. So if you're on a Pro plan, you can't actually export private channels and DMs. You can only export public channels on the Pro plan. On Business Plus and Enterprise Plus, you can actually export public, private, and DMs, everything. Sometimes there's a requirement to actually export data for one specific user, which is a feature only available in Enterprise Plus. There's also DLP, that is data loss prevention. It actually is super helpful when you want to make sure that you save the data for any future legal actions. There's also legal holds specifically for that, which you can apply on channels, which you can apply on certain people, so that if there's a dispute going on in the company, you don't actually lose the data, which could be required for legal cases. Then there's Discovery APIs, which is also only available with Enterprise Plus. It helps you with data export specifically. Then you have audit logs, and then support for HIPAA compliance. Now, in terms of administration, there are channel posting permissions, which you can actually decide on Business Plus and Enterprise Plus in any channel. For a general channel, you do get that option in Free and Pro plan only. For Business Plus and Enterprise Plus, you don't need to focus just on General Plus. You can focus on any channel, and that should be good. Again, Admin Analytics Dashboard, it's available in all the paid plans. SCIM user management, this is also a feature which reduces the admin workload, because you don't want to actually go to your system and invite every individual user. If you have them enabled using SCIM, you can actually either go for JIT or auto provisioning. JIT is just in time, which means that when a user's logged in, their user will automatically be created, or you can do it auto creation. Every time you create a new email account, it will automatically create a Slack account associated with it as well. And then you have Admin Analytics API, Message Activity Analytics, and custom user groups. When we talk about custom user groups here, it's more like a generic user group. There are two types of user groups in Slack. One is IDP groups, and then custom user groups. Custom user groups essentially are when, instead of tagging like 15 people, you can simply use that username. For example, I have 5 people in the marketing team, and I've created a user group for them at marketing team. That's my username, user group name. And every time I need to actually tag marketing team members in a message, in a channel, I can simply use that at marketing team user group at mention, and it will actually notify all the users from the marketing team that this is a message which needs their attention. IDP groups are a lot more powerful because you can actually assign certain permissions and channel enablement and workspace associations with it. However, IDP groups only comes from your SSO or SAML providers. You also get the option to domain claim in Enterprise Plus. Now, what is domain claiming? Well, you get the option to claim a certain domain. For example, my organization's name is implementology.io, so I can actually claim implementology.io domain. Anyone with this email address or with this domain email, if they will try to create a new Slack workspace, they will then be redirected to our main Slack workspace to join it, rather than let them create multiple workspaces for implementology everywhere. Then there are custom terms and terms of service, which you can actually set up with Enterprise Plus. There are more granular roles which you can set up with Enterprise Plus as well, and manage any flag content, because sometimes like people do share sensitive information and you want to understand how you want to settle that. And lastly, support. With Enterprise Plus plan, you get a 4-hour first time response. With Business Plus as well, you get the same plan, same support. With Pro, it's 24/7 support, but there's no set time for the first response time. And now, in terms of pricing, these are varied pricing. Free is obviously free forever. Pro is $725 per person per month. This won't come in exam as to what the pricing would be. It's good to know as a consultant, because you can then advise your client based on their usage and requirement as to which plan they should go for. Business Plus is $15 per person per month. And Enterprise Plus is normally around $45 per person per month. However, they normally say that context sales for pricing, but it's in general $45 per person per month. In most cases, Slack do offer discount, especially for the first year. If your organization size is bigger, they do offer it for longer term as well. So that's a good thing. So now you understand the basics about the different Slack plans. As I mentioned, the main thing for exam you need to know is what unlocks at Business Plus and what unlocks at Enterprise Plus. It's not Enterprise Grid, I've mentioned it several times, but this has been a new change. That's why you are seeing this in my slides multiple times as written as Enterprise Grid. Every time you see Enterprise Grid, just think about it as Enterprise Plus. But from exam point of view, understanding the differences between Business Plus and Enterprise Plus is the most important things for you all. One of the biggest differences which you haven't seen in this list, I will say, is with Enterprise Plus, you do get the option to create as many workspaces as you need. With Business Plus, you only get one workspace. Sorry, with Free, Pro, and Business Plus, you only get one workspace to work with. For Enterprise Plus, you get option to create as many workspaces as you need. So totally depending on your preference, because especially when your global organization is working with you, you probably have to think about, do they want to separate the data based on the departments, because their size may be 10, 15,000 people. You don't want to overload the workspace with like thousands of channels. It becomes very crazy and chaotic as well, especially when you're inviting external team members, guest users, and so on and so forth. It's always good to have users working in their primary workspace most of the time, and then using separate workspaces as and when they need, to make sure that they're focused and they're not losing track of time. So for bigger organizations, there is a good strategy to actually go to Enterprise Plus and maybe have separate workspaces depending on their preferences. For example, I implemented Slack for CAF, and they actually created separate workspaces for different tournaments. for men's tournaments, for women's tournaments, for their programs team who was organizing tournaments for school kids. So, and then there was one for the HQ team. So they had like these different ideas. Based on that, we created the Slack architecture for them. You can actually think it from the lens as to the other organization I worked with. They were like, we actually work in very siloed teams. We want dedicated workspace for our sales team. Potentially with some overlaps with marketing as well. Then we want one workspace for HR, finance, and legal team. And then we want one workspace for the executive team. This workspace should also be like hidden so that nobody can see or request to join it, because in the executive workspace, they were having conversations around acquisitions, mergers, and a lot of other things as well. So, and then they wanted to have like one social workspace where everyone can come together and have conversations. So totally depending on your organization's need, you can actually think about designing the enterprise grid in a way that works best for your customer. And also it is designed normally in a way that your primary user spends at least 80% of their time in one workspaces. The interesting thing I want to highlight is that something which I've seen a few times initially when you get Enterprise Plus, because you have the option to create as many workspaces as you need. Like there's no limit, literally no limit. I've seen people creating workspaces left and right, and then it creates additional overhead for the admin team members. Because Slack admin needs to look after all of these workspaces. So if you're creating workspaces without a clear purpose, it's going to actually significantly increase your workload by not even generating enough value for your users. So that's something which you should consider before adding new workspaces in your organization. Now that we have a very clear idea of which plan does what, let's focus on user roles and permissions. So majorly, there are 6 roles: primary owner, owner, admin, full member, multi-channel guest, and single channel guest. Other than these, there are roles for Enterprise Plus, because there you have primary org owner, which is the main hopeful person of that org. Then you have org admins. Then you have org owners and org admins. Further down, you have workspace owners and workspace admins. And then you have full members, multi-channel guests, and single channel guests. So that actually has like additional roles, types of roles. Okay, let me just share this with you. So if you look at this workspace primary owner, workspace admin, these are the roles, like the standard roles. With org, you also have 3 additional roles: org primary owner, org owner, and org admins. And then you have a lot of system roles which you can assign to your full members as well if you want to. So I will share this with you, and I want you to actually read this in detail for you to be able to understand what each of these roles does and how and where you can use these roles, because this is actually going to help you in exam really well. Now, once you have assigned these roles, let me see if I can actually show you from here. Okay, now I have to actually open the enterprise grid first to be able to show you roles from here. Let me actually stop my screen share and then show you that. Sorry, hold on. Son actually just barged in because he thought like, okay, it's been a while, I should go back. Okay, let me just open the enterprise settings, and then I can the org settings, sorry, not enterprise settings. And then I'll show you how this role thing looks like. Alrighty, let me share my screen once again. Perfect. Admins versus owners tip. I will actually share that once again, so don't worry about the exam tips. I'm very clear. Okay, so under the roles and permissions, this is the enterprise grid. If you're on a Business Plus plan, you will see these here as well. But since we're on an Enterprise Plus plan, you won't see them for the org. Like even if you'll see those for org, you will have like limited users here. I will show them in a second. Like this is for the org, and this is for the org, and this is for the workspace. So I'll show you for the org first. As you can see, you have a lot more roles for the org because you have your primary owner, your org admin, workspace primary owner, workspace owner, workspace admin, and then member, multi-channel guest, and single channel guest. You can actually assign what they can and cannot do in here. As a workspace org primary owner, I can actually set up permissions for everyone on the left to me. If I'm an org owner, I won't be able to set permissions for org primary owner, because if I haven't given these permissions to org owners, they won't be able to edit them either. And then if you look at org admin, they won't be able to edit these permissions because these are only assigned by org owners. So the further left you go, the lesser permissions you will have. Now, the difference between the primary owner and org owner majorly is that primary owner also has access to the payment details, all the additional security settings, including data export, import, merging any other workspace, and so on and so forth. Org owner has a lot of permissions which org admins have, but they can't actually touching the billing info and the major things where decisions from the leaderships are involved. And then org admins definitely helps with a lot of the day-to-day management. And then if you are working with a bigger organization, you will have your workspace admins as well. Now, if you're on a Business Plus plan, the roles you will mostly see are these ones. Workspace primary owner, workspace admin, member, multi-channel guest, and single channel guest. And you will be able to edit these roles based on your organizational preferences. When you're on the Business Plus plan, your workspace primary owner will have like everything ticked in green in here because they will have all the permissions. However, there isn't a org owner in this case, so they won't be able to set up permissions for the workspace owner. So that's the main difference between Business Plus and Enterprise Plus in terms of account types. Then there are roles which you can assign, and I lost my mouse. Okay. Then there are roles which you can assign to different members, and you can also adjust who already has this role assigned to them. You can assign it to a certain person. Here you can actually see what this role does. Views and export Slack adoption uses and activity data. For example, this one can manage template features. This one can manage the publish workflows and admin dashboard, and so on and so forth. So you can actually assign these different roles to different users to ease your admin's burden as well. Now going back to the slide, owner versus admin, you need to read the questions very carefully. This was something which I mentioned. Admin is often the correct answer, even though owner looks tempting. That said, I'm not saying admin is going to be the only answer. I'm just saying like a lot of time you'll be tempted to pick owner because not everyone can be the owner. So you have to make sure that you are focusing on that. The major differences I've highlighted here. The primary owner has full control over billing, workspace deletion, ownership transfer as well, but only primary owner can transfer the ownership to somebody else. So for example, if I'm a primary owner, I can assign the primary owner permission to somebody else, but I can't actually, nobody else can change that permission. Also, there's one thing which is super interesting. When you start working with a client and somebody gives you the owner permission, you can't actually close your account or delete your account, or you can't actually touch other workspace owner's account. Only primary workspace owner can do that. You can, however, do that for workspace admins, but you can't do that for workspace owner because you're on the same level as the other workspace owner. Could you repeat the slide? Okay. Can you edit directly in the grid? For permissions, yes, you can actually edit permissions in the grid. You actually can set up all the permissions from here for both workspaces as well as org. If you want separate permissions for workspaces, you have that option to actually do that for the org, for the workspace only. So there are two ways you can set it up, for org or for workspace. Yes, there shall only be one single primary org owner. However, interesting thing, if you have maybe 5 workspaces, you will have 5 primary workspace owners as well. Those workspace owners will be responsible for each of those workspaces. They won't still control the billing because if you're in an enterprise org, only primary org owner controls the billing. Primary workspace owner will, however, be able to delete the workspace, transfer the ownership, and do rest of the other things as well within the workspace. Now let's move on to the next bit, admin console navigation. Let's do that. I'm now realizing that I should have actually created a free workspace as well for you all to show how it might look like in the Business Plus plan, but now we have this, so that's it. I will, however, actually use a different workspace to show you this example. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing actually a lot of sensitive details in the workspace, and I don't want to share people's email addresses over screen share. So what we can do in that case, I'm just trying to figure out. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay. So the only thing which I won't show is the members tab because that has details of users and their email addresses. Other than that, like we're going to go through each and every tab to understand the navigation. Okay. Let's go back. So under people, you have 3 things: members, user groups, and invitations. Members is a tab where you see all the members of your organization. I'm not clicking on this. The reason behind that is this has like all the people's email addresses, and I don't want to show that as of now. User groups actually has any user group which you have created, as I mentioned, for marketing team, for sales team, or any other teams for that matter. You can edit user groups from here. You can also create them from your Slack user interface, depending on your permissions, which were assigned here. So if you have permission to create user groups, you should be able to see that. Now, the next bit is invitations. You can also see like if you have any pending invitation, if you have somebody who has accepted it, and so on and so forth. You can also manage integrations from here. Any integrations you have created or linked with your Slack. And then you have all channels, so you can see, sorry, I'm actually sharing data which I shouldn't have. Sorry, but you normally get access to all of these, and then you can see your Slack Connect channels, your Slack Connect invitation settings, anything. And then you have your Salesforce org, your quips, everything in here. Then you have your analytics, and this is really interesting because then you can actually see your organization's analytics, your workspace analytics, your members, channels, huddles, clips, apps, workflows, their usage as well. And then you have your roles and permissions, your security settings. This lets you access. So admin advisor is a feature which you're going to get a question on. Feature access is something that you can actually control your AI usage for everyone. And then you have your SSO settings, which lets you connect your SSO here. You have your security settings, which you can update, your email domains, all the things we talked about, your audit logs, key management, information barrier. And then you have your settings here. These settings actually differ from Business Plus Plan to Enterprise Plus Plan. And actually, this just reminds me, I do have Business Plus Plan. Let me just open that workspace. So we have that plan for our TrailX Club. And I just realized that I can actually show you at least some things from there, because that also has sensitive data, and I don't want to share users' email addresses. However, I can actually show some of the settings for how Business Plus will look like versus the other bits. Okay, let me share my screen once again. Okay. So if you look at this, this is how the Business Plus plan looks like. You don't see workspaces option here, which you see in the enterprise grid option. Here you can see analytics, roles, and permissions, just like we saw before. You also are not seeing a lot of the things in the security. So here you can actually set up enterprise key management, information barriers, and audit logs. Here you can only see access logs, and then you don't see the other settings. So there are like a lot of differences, even in the analytics section. If you look at this, and here you can actually see organizations analytics and workspaces analytics as well. Here you only see the overview, and then you don't get like a lot of details into Canvas usage or list usage and workflow users and so on and so forth. So there are like big differences between Business Plus and Enterprise Plus as well, especially if your organization is heavy on analytics. I would recommend you to go for Enterprise Plus. Now let's go to the security settings. Even here, the settings, sorry. Here you can see you can't do channel management in Business Plus, but you can actually do that in Enterprise Grid. There's also a cool feature called Enterprise Search, which you can set up in the Enterprise Grid, but you can't in the Business Plus one. And then yeah, the rest is organization policies and information, which you can only obviously set up in Enterprise Grid because that one has org. This one only is a workspace, so you don't need org settings here. However, if you, I was talking about this cool thing, Admin Advisor. So now Slack has actually created this thing called Admin Advisor, which actually gives you any security risk you might have to fix them as soon as possible. So you can actually do that. Under settings, the settings more or less are the same, and you don't need to actually go through each and every setting for the examination specifically, but you need to have a good idea as to what can be done. Here you actually have the option to edit organization settings and policies under the settings bar. And this is a question which you will see where you can set it up. So the best way to explore this is to create your own Slack workspace and then do it. Here you can actually set up your settings and permissions and any other thing which you would prefer. So you can allow people with approved email to join this workspace. You can enforce TLS, workspace language. You can set it up, default channels. So if I want people to join certain channels when they join the workspace, I can add them here. So as you can see, I've added like quite a few channels in here. So every time somebody new joins in our Trellix Club workspace, they can then default join these. They will default join these channels at the time of joining as well. There are like a lot of settings which you can do here. It's better to explore these by creating your own workspace and then setting these up using the sandbox to explore these, because if I will take you through all of this, we will probably spend all the time just in the settings section. And then you can also edit and set up details for a Slack bot. Who can actually use it? Are we allowing web search? Can they create an added canvas? Can they pre-file approval bypass? Because sometimes you want to approve things before the changes can be made, and then all files, like what will show files, do you want to do that or not? You can then customize your workspace from the customize option as well. You can add as many emojis as you want. You can also see who added a particular emoji and on what date. You can actually set up any automated messages as well. So when somebody says something or maybe writes a particular keyword, what automated message you want to publish. So sometimes like maybe they have entered credit card details and you want to say like every time somebody types in credit card, this is an automated message you want to pop. So every time it will read credit card, it'll pop that message like, hey, this is sensitive information. You should probably not share it. Or if you're looking for credit card details, please talk about those in person or do not share those in Slack and so on and so forth. You can also update your workspace icon from here. You can update statuses. So your default status can be actually updated, but you can only have a maximum of 5 default status for both org and for each workspace. Then you have your channel prefixes, which you can actually add by default. You can add more channel prefixes as well if you have like set channel prefixes you want your team to use. And then you have the option for billing and deprecation if you want to delete the workspace. You can get more details around the workspace from here. What's the plan type? When it was created? Who the admins and owners are? What's the retention and export looks like, and so on and so forth. So this is like pretty much it in terms of managing the workspace and the settings associated with it. So we have gone through most of the admin console details. I want you all to actually explore it a bit more based on your own preferences. Please create your sandboxes and try to explore the console navigation from your end. Next up we have is workspace creation and initial configuration. This is something which most of the people who I can see here from the 30 days of Slack challenge, you all have already experienced this or you have done this in some way or the other. In general, to be able to create a workspace, you can actually go to workspaces, and then from here, you can click on all workspaces and create a new workspace. This is how you do it in an org. However, when you're on a Business Plus, Pro, or Free plan, by default, you will create only one workspace. You don't need to create additional workspaces or worry about setting those up. You can actually set up custom profile fields. Okay, that's something which we missed actually. But you can actually do that in your own time whenever you want. You can actually do that from the settings bit. You can add certain profile fields. Sometimes you want to see maybe your LinkedIn profile in your profile field, or your preferred time to contact, or maybe name pronunciation, all of those things. You can actually set those up as well by creating additional fields. You can actually associate those fields with your SAML as well. So for example, if your Okta has all the details about your employees, you want to add their designation, their title, or their manager detail, or anything like that, you can actually set it up. And then you can also set up workspace preferences. So you can actually set up the messaging themes and sidebars and so on and so forth. Next up we have is workspace versus org level settings. As I mentioned, when you are on the enterprise grid, you have the option to set up org policies and settings from here. And for each workspace, you will see something similar to what I showed you here. So you'll see for each workspace, you'll see settings permissions like this. Now, if we talk about, so these are something which you can actually experience yourself in your sandbox as well. So when you create a sandbox, that's by default an enterprise plus sandbox. So you should be able to experience all this. About exam tips, before we actually move on to some exam questions or test what we have learned today. The key thing which you need to understand is what unlocks at Business Plus versus Enterprise Plus. Owner versus admin. Owner responsibilities are the trap answer, and admin is correct. So you need to actually understand a bit more about what an owner can do versus what an admin can do. Then also need to think about single channel guest versus multi-channel guest. This is something which I missed actually. Let me actually talk a bit about this. Then admin console, where you can configure certain things, is what you will be asked in your exam. Then you have org level versus workspace level setting. So determine which setting can be done on the workspace level, which can be done on the org level, and how it works. We talked about different types of roles here. So primary owner, workspace admin, and full member, these are all fully paid licenses. So you will pay same amount of fees for all of those roles. This is just a role. Single channel guest is a really interesting thing. And this is something which I've mentioned here, but I forgot to talk about it. So you can have 10 guests per paid license. So for example, if you have 10 paid licenses for your org, you can invite up to 100 single channel guests for free. You can't invite more than 100 for free. You can invite 100 single channel guests. Single channel guests are part of only one channel, as the name suggests. They have limited permissions, but they are only part of one channel. Sometimes you need to collaborate with your contractors, but they don't have the Slack on their own. So you can invite them as single channel guests. The second type of guest are multi-channel guests. They can be a part of more than one channel, but they're charged as a full member. You will be paying full license cost for any multi-channel guest. The only thing you need to think about is whenever you're adding a guest, do you want them to add as a multi-channel guest or as a single channel guest? If they already have a Slack workspace, do you want to add them as a Slack Connect connection for that channel or for that VM? So just be very careful because these are the questions which you need to answer in the question in the exam as well, for you to be able to determine which setting or feature you need to use or which role you need to assign to that particular user. Now let's do some exercise. So I'm actually going to share my screen, and then we will actually take some questions from the audience, because I can see there are a few questions here. So Your organization needs to determine which plan tier unlocks Enterprise Plus features versus Standard Business Plus capabilities. A customer requires 4 workspaces for global teams, centralized control, and search across all workspaces. Which tier must they choose? You can type in your answers ABC in the chat. B, okay, that's correct. Well, let's B. Standard Business Plus is limited to single workspace configuration. Enterprise Plus is required for multi-workspace organizations. Next up, an organization wants to restrict who can delete apps, bots, messages to only workspace admins. During setup, they discover the workspace owner is the currently only one with this ability. Where can they assign this permission? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of roles. I can see A's, 1B so far. Okay, well, you're in for a surprise because I think you were not paying too much attention. It's account types where you actually can set it up. And let me just go back a bit so that you can actually see where we were. So if you go to account types, you can actually assign different permissions from here. Roles are these roles. So when we talk about restricting who can delete apps and bots messages, you can't find that in here. It's apps and bots. Okay, it should be here somewhere. Delete messages from apps and bots is the permission which you can assign from account types, not from roles though. So you have to be very careful with these smaller details. While Workspace owner holds ultimate authority for billing deletion, message deletion policies are configured in the admin console and can be delegated to Workspace admins. Can be, not always. Sometimes they can be. Oops, sorry, you can already see the answer. Oh, my bad. The question was, an organization needs to bring external contractors into their workspace to collaborate on specific projects, and contractors only require to access a single specific channel, while other needs to join multiple project channels. What guest type should be assigned to manage these access requirements efficiently? So instead of adding all contractors as full members, it's better to add them as single channel and multi-channel guests, depending on the requirements, so that you can save on the license cost as well. If you're adding all of them as multi-channel guests, you will end up paying a ton of money, which you can save. External shared channels only works when the other party also have Slack. And also, if you don't want them to share your details outside of that particular channel, it's better to add them as guests instead of Slack Connect channels. Again, single channel guests are restricted to exactly one channel and are free of cost up to a certain ratio. Multi-channel guests can access multiple specified channels and are billed as standard active members. An organization wants to centralize security settings and administrative configurations across all of their multiple workspaces. Where must global and administrative action security integrations across workspace permissions be configured by the org admin? Okay, this was an easy one, I will say, because it had a giveaway in the question itself. So if you're reading the question correctly, you should be able to answer most of the questions. It's org settings, as you have guessed, because org admin will set it up. The admin console is a central hub where individual workspace setting exists. Org level configuration overrides and establishes global guardrails across the entire Enterprise Plus. Last question. Slack Connect and external communication is a topic, and an organization wants to collaborate with an external partner on a joint project without adding them as guests. They need a secure shared space where members from both independent organizations can communicate using their own respective enterprise accounts. Which Slack feature should be configured to enable this? You all are correct. Slack Connect channels. A Slack Connect channel, and this is a key detail, not all of you will read it. Slack Connect channel allows up to 25 separate organizations to securely collaborate within a shared channel while keeping control of their organization's data. They don't occupy seats in your workspace. They are connected externally through this channel. So this is a really interesting one. But you can't have more than 25 organizations in a Slack Connect channel. I've seen a few nonprofits who hit this limit. Most organizations don't, but I've seen a few nonprofits hit the limit because they are collaborating with multiple different organizations, especially nonprofits who are focused on research work, because multiple organizations are collaborating together for the research work. So they've hit the figure of 25, and one of them is my client, and they're like, hey, can we do something about it? And I was like, there's nothing I can help you with. You can probably create a separate channel and invite your users as single channel guests. But that's the only solution I have if you have hit a limit of 25 separate organizations. That's it from my side. If you have any specific questions, we can actually answer those. I saw a couple of questions. Let me stop sharing my screen and go through those questions. I think I saw one from Shanti. How do you set the file expiration settings? You can set the message expiration on the settings and permissions for how about files. Okay. This is something which I haven't done so far. So I don't know how it's done. You can probably Google search and see. For any other plan, we can only create a single workspace. Yes, for Enterprise Plus, you can have as many workspaces as you want. For other plans, it's just one workspace. I can see some questions in the Q&A as well, I guess. The RISE Articulate Admin Prep Workshop, the contents are quite old. The new exam went into effect in June last week. So I would recommend actually going through the help articles instead of this. So go through the exam guide and then go through the help articles to be able to prepare for this exam instead of actually just going through the workshops on the RISE link. What if somebody needs to have more than 25 organizations? Well, one, whether you raise a support ticket or not, this is the hard limit they have. You can actually invite them as single channel or multi-channel guest in the organization. Okay. What is the difference between audit logs and access logs? So audit logs actually, access logs talk about just the access. When somebody logged in, when they were they using it on mobile app or desktop app, or were they accessing a particular app, whereas audit logs has a lot more details than just like what time it was accessed. That's the only major difference. So audit logs can actually tell you all the details as to which device was used, when it was used, what they did after that as well. So it's essentially like following the chain of commands, whereas access logs just tells you when you log in and log off, and that's it. What's the difference between an org and a workspace? Org essentially is, you can think of it, workspace is a one where you actually do the work. An org is a collection of workspaces. So you are essentially controlling everything from a dashboard that's called org, which has like maybe 5, 6, or 10 workspaces underneath it. Okay, I think these are the only questions I see as of now. If there are any more questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
I think so. We don't have any new questions. So before we wrap it up, few final slides I want to share. So we have few upcoming sessions. So I'm just sharing the QR code, so you guys can take a minute to really scan through an RSVP. Okay, hope guys have scanned in the QR code. So we have QR codes for to follow the Vidarbha Slack chapter for all upcoming sessions, and all the Slack community sessions, Vidarbha sessions, will be uploaded in Pride Force YouTube channel. So even you guys can scan and access those videos. So I think so. That's all. I would really thank everyone,